All right, Nuggets, welcome to the next episode of QuaranStream. Today, by special request, our guest is Hawley's most amazing art teacher, Mrs. Tara Hager. Good afternoon, Mrs. Hager.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know this is a little out of your comfort zone, so welcome to being a celebrity now. So let's get to it. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being amazing and 1 being horrible, how would you rate your day today?
It's definitely not a 10 or a 9 or an 8 or a 7. It fluctuates quite a bit. Let's see, started out the morning, I think, relatively smooth. And then when the emails start piling in, I feel my anxiety going up. So I don't know, I suppose when I have a cup of tea or coffee in my hand, just sitting there getting the day started, I'm sitting at, a nice 7 or 8. And then as the workload starts to increase, the number drops quickly. Mm-hmm. Definitely. So right now I'm at below a 6. Okay. But talking to you, I mean, it's much higher. So I would say I'm a 10 right now. I take that. I'm a 10.
Thank you, Mrs. Hager. We'll have to talk regularly then, because I also haven't been at a 10 since this whole thing started. I would say today, so we're recording this Friday afternoon, I'm probably at like a 7.5 right now, because I'm kind of stressed about what I didn't get done this week, but I'm also really happy it's the weekend. So hanging in there. What for you has been one of the toughest parts about this distance learning, social isolation experience?
Oh, good question. The toughest part, balancing everything. Just trying to stay ahead of whatever's happening. So if I'm trying to stay ahead of what the students need, just trying to keep up with it. Trying to balance my home life. So keeping 4 kids going with distance learning is a little much. And I am lucky enough to be going through my master's right now during this. So that's the cherry on top.
Yeah, that's all fair. I am feeling that too, and I'm not going through my master's program right now. So I'm feeling that with you. It hasn't all been bad though. So what for you has been one of the maybe unexpected best parts of this whole experience?
I still absolutely enjoy seeing the artwork that's coming through. So that's a highlight, whether it's a simple sketchbook or a bigger project. My advanced art students are creating postcards for their sketchbook, so they have to mail out a postcard to somebody. So they design the front of the postcard. So they're using their art gift and trying to brighten somebody's day, somebody that's kind of closed up and maybe hasn't seen anybody for a while. So I always enjoy seeing what comes through with those assignments. But the other good stuff happening, just being home. I am a homebody. I'm an introvert. I like being home. So I don't mind that part all that. I mean, that's not a huge struggle for me. I know some people are not built that way. I like being home with the kiddos, playing board games and cards and watching movies and, that kind of thing. So that part is good.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of the students that are going to watch this are going to be able to relate to that introverted piece, that really, like, being home is not bad. I'm not super introverted, so this is really hard. I had to go to the school yesterday to drop something off, and I talked to 3 people that I don't live with, and it was amazing. So I am struggling with with that, but really appreciate talking to people when I get a chance to. What are you feeling grateful for these days?
Health, just as long as the Hawley community, my family members, myself, as long as we are all healthy and safe. I think that's the most important thing to just stay focused on. But yeah, being grateful that I'm still staying a day ahead of the students, keeping up with the pace. I'm grateful for that as well. I did go to see, last weekend, both of my grandmothers are in their 90s. So I went and did the whole tapping on the window and just, waving to them and left them a little treat. And that filled my heart up to just see them. just even though it was through the glass. So, and then I also got to see my baby nephew. I saw him when he was 2 days old, and he's now 2 months old. Haven't, I didn't get to see him in between, but had an opportunity to see him as well. Even though I didn't get to hold him, it was emotional to see him. I was like not expecting that. I'm like, oh, I want to hold him. But anyway, so that was a grateful moments as well. So
cool. I'm jealous. My grandma's 95 and in a nursing home in North Dakota, so I can't just go see her. And her hearing is so bad that I can't even really call her. And so I miss her because I just can't be connected that way. So I'm happy for you.
For sure.
This is a stressful time, to put it lightly. So what is one of your go-to self-care strategies to take care of you so you keep plugging along?
Oh, the go-to for me, and it always has been, is to run. Not run away from the problem. I mean, physically hop on the treadmill and run. So if I can crank out 3 miles, that helps tremendously for me. I know that's not for everybody. Also, eating right, or trying to. It's hard sometimes when you're seated, at your desk all day. You're grabbing and snacking and that kind of thing. But trying to eat well, and then drinking a lot of water. When I start to get sleepy, that's kind of one of my signs, like I need some water and I need it now. So I'll go grab some water, and that usually perks me up.
So you talked about being sleepy. What are your other signs, or the kind of those telltale things that you can tell you're on the verge of getting overwhelmed or stressed out or burnt out, whatever it might be when it's those hard days? How do you tell?
Well, especially the first 2 weeks of distance learning, to be honest, were not great. I literally felt nauseous. I felt sick. I didn't feel like myself. My upper neck, shoulder area was gross, like a knot. And that was partially being hunched over and on a keyboard all day and night. So those for me were like the physical signs. And then, I'm probably not the most delightful person to be around at that time. I don't think most people realize that, but my family members that have to put up with me and live with me probably would agree and would be nodding right now going, oh, she was a little rough.
If it makes you feel better, I think every guest that has been on here has talked about how grouchy they have gotten or how unpleasant they have been when we're stressed out. And I would imagine that many of our students watching would say the same thing, or at least their parents or siblings would say the same thing. So I feel like that is the most common theme of all. My neck and shoulders also have been killing me, so I understand that. If you were going to give a tip to your students about how to take care of themselves, what do you think is one of the most important things that kids can do?
Oh my goodness, they have to have their thing. So I mentioned my thing is running. Getting a good run in. But for a student, it might be exercising, but maybe it's reading a book or listening to music or going for a walk. It could be any number of things, but taking a moment and stepping away. I have not been good about that. I've been kind of obsessed with making sure I'm getting back right away to my students. So I'm good at giving advice, maybe not the best at like actually listening to it at times, but as time goes on with this distance learning, I'm trying to be a little bit better about that. But yeah, having your thing to just take your mind off a little bit and get away for a moment or two.
I was emailing Ms. Anderson this morning just about how students are doing. And one of the things we were talking about is that there's such an opportunity for growth through this experience for all of us. And for students in particular, I think, who just developmentally are figuring out who they are and how they tick, but ways to understand how you deal with stress and how you manage yourself independently and how to take responsibility for things and how to know when you're okay. And so through this great experiment, I think students are going to get to know themselves a lot better too, which I'm sorry it had to happen this way, but that'll be a really cool thing that comes out of it.
For sure.
A question from a student that was posed: how are you managing your time wisely to get done your work that you need to do?
Not stopping. Like, honestly, you got to keep working, and you need to be really, really organized. Like I mentioned, there's a lot to balance. And I think the big thing is staying ahead of that loop. Otherwise, I think the anxiety is going to start piling on. We already have enough of these anxious moments that are happening right now because some stuff is out of our control. So we need to do our best to make sure we control the things that we can. So if it means sticking to a schedule, getting up and getting dressed, not staying in your pajamas all day, or I mentioned eating right and, drinking lots of water and exercising. I know you maybe kind of think, oh, I don't want to do any of that stuff. That sounds boring, but it really, it helps a ton. So a schedule, being organized. It's not exciting, I know, but it helps a lot.
Right. That's where the work happens, I think. What advice would you give for students that might be struggling, whether it's in your class or another class? What do you want those kids to do?
Oh my gosh, you have to reach out to people that care about you. So it might be family members that are living with you right there in your home. It might be friends that you can text or email or FaceTime or any of that. And certainly any of the people in this school building, every one of them they're here ready to help and assist. So you have to be willing to ask for help, because we can't read your mind as much as we try. And it's really hard with this whole distance learning thing to know what kids are going through, because we don't have that daily check-in where you're in our classroom and, where you're going, oh, okay, so-and-so's not looking good. We don't have that right now. So we need to make sure that students are asking for help when they need it.
Yeah. And finally, as your parting thought, what is something that you want your Hawley students to know?
Oh my goodness. This is such a small thing on the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things. It's not, when you start to give it more power than it needs, that's when you're kind of giving up. So step back and enjoy the time of kind of winding down a little bit and not having to run in 40 directions like we are used to doing, and realize that really is kind of a gift to just be home and to be quiet and to have a moment for yourself for a change, because that is rare. So the other thing I want students to know is that again, that there's so many of us that care, and they need to reach out and ask for help if they're struggling. So that's the big thing, and we will get through this for sure. How's that enlightening?
That's so enlightening. I think probably the nuggets out there watching this are weeping with joy because they're so enlightened. If nothing else, at least I think it's good to hear another perspective on it. So, Mrs. Hager, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us, to share some insight with students. Want to say goodbye before I turn you off recording here?
I hope everybody keeps cruising and keep your focus on the end prize, whatever that is. If it's the end of the school year, or just the end of the week, or and just stay focused on those positive things. But see you soon. Thank you, Mrs. Boeshans.
Of course. And Nuggets, if you have any more suggestions for who you want to see on here next, please fill out the form that's linked on my Google Classroom. Working through these, love seeing who you are suggesting, and I think almost everyone has taken you up on the offer to come in. So keep them coming. Have a good week, guys.